Every memory of that night burned like acid in Valeria's mind. The flashing lights of the bar, the overwhelming smell of cheap perfume, and the undeniable sight of her then-boyfriend in the arms of another woman. 3 years had passed since that traumatic discovery, yet the scars remained, hidden beneath her carefully constructed exterior. Now, as she sat at her kitchen table staring at the diamond ring on her finger, Valeria Stanton wondered if history was about to repeat itself in the cruelest way possible. The anonymous text message glowed menacingly on her phone screen. "Your fiancé isn't who you think he is. Open your eyes before it's too late." Valeria's hands trembled slightly as she set the phone down. Who would send such a message? And more importantly, could it possibly be true? She and Dominic had been together for only 6 months before his unexpected proposal, but those months had been filled with the kind of passionate devotion she'd only read about in novels. Dominic Stevens was everything she'd ever wanted: handsome, successful, attentive, and seemingly devoted only to her. The front door opened, pulling Valeria from her spiraling thoughts. Dominic's tall frame appeared, his usual confident stride now weighted with visible exhaustion. It was past 11 o'clock, the third night this week he'd come home late. "Hey, beautiful," he said, loosening his tie and pressing a quick kiss to her forehead. "Sorry I'm late again. The Johnson case is killing me." Valeria forced a smile. "I kept dinner warm for you." "You're an angel," Dominic said, though he made no move toward the kitchen. "But I grabbed something at the office. I think I'll just shower and head to bed. I'm completely drained." The familiar excuse settled between them like an unwelcome guest. 2 weeks ago, Dominic would have insisted on sitting with her regardless of how tired he was or whether he'd eaten. 2 weeks ago, he would have asked about her day teaching 4th graders and shared amusing anecdotes about his clients. Now, distance was growing between them, subtle but unmistakable. "Dominic," Valeria said, her voice softer than intended. "Is everything okay? With us, I mean?" He turned, surprise flickering across his handsome features before his expression softened. "Of course it is. Why would you ask that? You've been different lately. Distant, working late almost every night." Dominic sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. "I'm sorry, Val. I'm just trying to wrap up as many cases as possible before the wedding. We need the money for the honeymoon, and I want to make sure I can take those 2 weeks off without any loose ends." He crossed the room and took her hands in his. "It's all for us, I promise." His green eyes, usually so expressive and warm, seemed guarded tonight. Or was she just looking for problems where none existed? The anonymous text had planted a seed of doubt, and Valeria couldn't help but notice how it was beginning to take root. "I miss you," she admitted. "I miss you too," he replied, squeezing her hands. "This is temporary, okay? Just until things settle down at work." Later that night, as Dominic slept beside her, Valeria stared at the ceiling, unable to quiet her racing thoughts. The memory of her last relationship's devastating end played on a loop in her mind. The discovery, the confrontation, the humiliation. She'd sworn never to be blindsided like that again. But here she was, lying beside a man she was set to marry in less than 2 months, wondering if the foundation of their relationship was built on quicksand. Her phone lit up with a text notification. Careful not to wake Dominic, Valeria reached for it, expecting perhaps a late-night message from one of her 4th grade students' parents. Instead, it was her twin sister, Vanessa. "Still up? Can't sleep either. Thinking about Mom?" Valeria slipped out of bed and padded quietly to the living room before calling her sister. Vanessa answered on the first ring. "Hey, sis!" Vanessa's voice, so similar to her own, was instantly comforting. "You okay?" "Not really," Valeria admitted. Within minutes, she found herself pouring out everything. The text message, Dominic's late nights, the subtle changes in his behavior, and her growing fear that she was being deceived again. "Val, you can't jump to conclusions," Vanessa cautioned. "Dominic doesn't seem like that kind of guy." "That's what I thought about Eric, too," Valeria countered, referencing her ex. Everyone said he was such a good guy right until I caught him cheating. There was a pause on the line. What are you going to do? The question hung in the air as an idea formed in Valeria's mind. A desperate, possibly unethical plan, but one that would give her the answers she needed. Vanessa, she said slowly, we look identical. Even our own mother mixes us up sometimes. Val, no, Vanessa replied immediately, recognizing where this was heading. Absolutely not. Please, just hear me out. You could approach him, flirt a little, see how he responds. You don't even have to do anything compromising. Just see if he's receptive. That's insane. And completely unfair to Dominic. What if he really is just working hard for your future? Valeria closed her eyes, feeling the burn of unshed tears. Then he'll turn you down, and I'll have my answer. I'll know I can trust him. And if he doesn't turn me down, if he flirts back, then I'll have that answer too. Valeria whispered, Please, Vanessa. I can't go through another heartbreak like Eric. I need to know before I say, I do. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of what Valeria was asking. I don't like this, Vanessa finally said, but I also don't like seeing you tormented by doubt. If this is what you need to move forward with confidence, I'll do it. But just this once, and we never tell anyone about this. Ever. Relief flooded through Valeria, momentarily overshadowing her guilt. Thank you. I swear. If he passes this test, I'll never doubt him again. The next morning, Valeria woke to find Dominic already dressed for work, his briefcase in hand. He leaned down to kiss her goodbye, but it felt perfunctory, lacking the lingering tenderness she'd grown accustomed to in their early months together. I'll probably be late again tonight, he said, adjusting his tie. Don't wait up. Actually, Valeria replied, putting their plan into motion. I'm having dinner at Mom's tonight. She's been feeling lonely since Dad passed. Dominic's expression softened with genuine sympathy. Give her my love, okay? Tell her I'll come by this weekend. After he left, Valeria texted Vanessa, We're on for tonight. He'll be working late, and I told him I'd be at Mom's. The response came quickly. I still think this is a bad idea, but I'll do it for you. Throughout the day, as Valeria tried to focus on teaching her students, her mind kept drifting to what the night might reveal. Would Dominic prove himself worthy of her trust, or would her worst fears be confirmed? The uncertainty was almost as painful as discovering the truth had been with Eric. By evening, the plan was set. Vanessa would visit Dominic's office around 8 o'clock, using the excuse of dropping off documents Valeria had forgotten to give him that morning. She would engage him in conversation, perhaps suggest grabbing a drink, and gauge his response. As Valeria sat in her car outside her mother's house, maintaining her alibi even though Dominic wouldn't know, her phone chimed with a message from Vanessa. On my way to his office now. Last chance to call this off. Valeria's thumb hovered over the keyboard. A part of her wanted to abort the mission, to trust in what she and Dominic had built. But the memory of Eric's betrayal and the anonymous warning text propelled her forward. Go ahead, she typed back. I need to know. The waiting was excruciating. Minutes stretched into an hour, then 2. When her phone finally lit up again, Valeria's heart nearly stopped. The message from Vanessa was brief but devastating. He suggested we meet Saturday night at Angelo's, 8 o'clock. Angelo's, the intimate Italian restaurant where Dominic had first told Valeria he loved her. The betrayal cut deeper than she could have imagined. Did he seem hesitant at all? Valeria typed back, desperate for any sign that Dominic might have been reluctant. No, he seemed eager. I'm so sorry, Val. Tears blurred Valeria's vision. The evidence was damning, yet a stubborn part of her refused to believe it. There had to be an explanation. Perhaps Dominic had seen through their ruse? Maybe he suspected it was some kind of test? A new plan formed in Valeria's mind. One final chance to understand the full extent of Dominic's betrayal. Or, perhaps, to discover there was more to the story than met the eye. Don't cancel, she wrote to Vanessa, but I'll be the one meeting him on Saturday. He won't know the difference. As she drove home that night, the engagement ring felt heavy on Valeria's finger. She'd given Dominic her heart, her trust, and soon she'd planned to give him her life. Now, she wondered if any of it had been real, or if she'd been blind to the truth all along. Saturday night couldn't come soon enough. One way or another, she would have her answer. The following 2 days passed in a haze of forced normalcy. Valeria maintained her routine, teaching her fourth-grade students, planning weekend activities with her mother, discussing wedding details with their planner, all while carrying the crushing weight of suspicion in her chest. Every smile she offered Dominic felt like a betrayal of herself. Every kiss they shared tainted by the knowledge of his apparent willingness to meet her sister in secret. Dominic seemed oblivious to the storm raging within her. If anything, he appeared more attentive than he had been in weeks, bringing home flowers on Thursday evening and suggesting they watch their favorite show together. The sudden return of affection only intensified Valeria's confusion. Was this guilt manifesting as compensation, or had she misjudged him entirely? "I was thinking," Dominic said as they prepared for bed on Friday night. "After the wedding, maybe we should look at houses in Oak Ridge. The school district is excellent, and it would cut your commute in half." Valeria froze, toothbrush suspended mid-air. They'd discussed children before, both wanted them eventually, but hearing him plan their future while potentially orchestrating its destruction felt like a knife twisting in her heart. "That sounds nice," she managed, the words hollow in her mouth. "You okay?" Dominic asked, his brow furrowing with what appeared to be genuine concern. "You've seemed distracted these past few days." For a moment, Valeria considered confronting him then and there, demanding to know why he'd agreed to meet Vanessa, forcing the truth into the open before another second of pretense could pass. But the strategist in her, the part that had survived Eric's betrayal by learning to protect herself at all costs, held firm to the plan. "I'm fine," she lied. "Just tired. End of the school year always drains me." Dominic seemed to accept this, pulling her into an embrace that once would have felt like home, but now felt like foreign territory. "Get some rest. I need to go into the office for a few hours tomorrow, but I should be back by 6. The mention of work on a Saturday would have raised red flags for Valeria, even without the planned meeting with Vanessa, or rather, with her masquerading as Vanessa. Now, it merely confirmed what she already feared. Dominic was creating space for his deception. "Actually," she said, seizing the opening, "I might have dinner with Vanessa tomorrow night. She's been wanting to discuss some wedding details without you around." The irony of using the truth, Vanessa would indeed be unavailable to support her lie, wasn't lost on Valeria. "Of course," Dominic replied easily. "Take all the time you need with her. Family is important." The earnestness in his voice nearly broke her. How could he look at her with such tenderness while planning to betray her in mere hours? Sleep eluded Valeria that night. She lay beside Dominic, studying the profile she'd fallen in love with. The strong jaw, the slightly crooked nose from a college football injury, the long eyelashes that seemed almost out of place on his masculine face. Had it all been a lie? Had she been so desperate to erase the trauma of her past that she'd ignored warning signs with Dominic? Morning arrived with no clarity, only the cold certainty that by nightfall she would know whether her engagement was built on solid ground or shifting sand. Dominic left for work around noon, kissing her goodbye with a casualness that belied the significance of the day. As soon as the door closed behind him, Valeria called Vanessa. "Are you sure about this?" her twin asked for what felt like the 100th time. "It's not too late to just talk to him, you know." "I'm sure," Valeria affirmed, though her stomach churned with uncertainty. "If he's willing to cheat with you, with someone who looks exactly like me, I need to see it with my own eyes." "That's what worries me," Vanessa replied softly. "Seeing it might hurt more than just knowing it." Valeria swallowed hard. "I survived Eric. I'll survive this too, if that's how it has to be." The hours crawled by as Valeria prepared for the evening. She chose an outfit from the collection of clothes Vanessa had left at her apartment over the years, an emerald green dress that complemented their auburn hair but was distinctly not Valeria's style. She styled her hair slightly differently, adding more volume than she typically wore. The subtle changes wouldn't be noticeable to most, but they helped Valeria step into her sister's identity. As 7:30 approached, Valeria stood before her mirror, barely recognizing herself. It wasn't just the clothes or the hair, it was the hardness in her eyes, the determined set of her jaw. This woman, prepared to confront her fiancé's betrayal, seemed miles away from the hopeful bride who'd been planning her wedding just days ago. "You can do this," she whispered to her reflection. "Whatever happens, you deserve the truth." Angelo's was busy when Valeria arrived, the Saturday night crowd creating a buzzing atmosphere that contrasted sharply with her somber mood. She gave Vanessa's name at the reservation desk and was led to a secluded corner table, intimate, romantic, and perfectly positioned for a clandestine meeting. Had Dominic chosen this location to minimize the chances of being seen, or was it merely convenience, given his supposed work schedule? Valeria ordered a glass of wine to steady her nerves, her eyes never leaving the entrance. At precisely 8 o'clock, Dominic walked through the door. Even after everything, the sight of him in his tailored suit, his dark hair slightly tousled from the evening breeze, made her heart leap. She hated herself for still finding him beautiful. The host pointed toward her table, and Dominic approached with a strange expression. Not the guilt she'd expected, nor the flirtatious anticipation of a man meeting a lover. Instead, he looked determined, almost grim. "Vanessa," he greeted, taking the seat across from her. "Thank you for coming." Valeria nodded, not trusting her voice to maintain Vanessa's slightly higher pitch. Up close, she could see the shadows under Dominic's eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He looked like a man carrying a heavy burden, not one anticipating an illicit rendezvous. "Would you like something to drink?" she asked, gesturing to her wine glass. "No," Dominic replied firmly. "I want to keep a clear head for this conversation." Something in his tone made Valeria's skin prickle with unease. This wasn't following the script she'd imagined. "I have to say," Dominic continued, "I was surprised by your visit to my office the other night, and even more surprised by your suggestion." Valeria took a sip of wine to hide her trembling lips. "Why is that surprising? You're an attractive man." Dominic's eyes narrowed slightly. "Cut the act, Vanessa. We both know why we're really here." Fear shot through Valeria. Had he discovered their plan? Did he know who he was really speaking to? "I'm not sure what you mean," she said carefully. "I mean," Dominic leaned forward, his voice lowering, "that I know exactly what you're doing. And I agreed to meet you tonight to make one thing absolutely clear. I love your sister. I would never betray her. Not with you, not with anyone." Relief and confusion warred within Valeria. If this was true, why had he agreed to the meeting at all? Why the secrecy, the late nights, the emotional distance? "If that's true," she said, maintaining her disguise, "then why are we here, in this romantic restaurant, hidden away in a corner?" "Because," Dominic said, pulling out his phone, "I wanted to have this conversation in person, and I wanted documentation." He placed the phone on the table, screen up, revealing that he was recording their conversation. "I don't know what game you're playing, Vanessa, but it stops tonight." The accusation in his voice felt like a physical blow. Valeria struggled to stay in character as her carefully constructed scenario crumbled around her. "I'm not playing games," she managed. "I just thought that I might be interested in you." Dominic interrupted, his expression hardening. "That I might betray the woman I love, your own sister, weeks before our wedding? What kind of man do you think I am?" The question hung between them, loaded with an irony Dominic couldn't possibly understand. Exactly what kind of man was he? The evidence was becoming increasingly difficult to reconcile with her suspicions. "I've noticed how you look at me sometimes," Valeria improvised, desperate to understand his true intentions. And Valeria mentioned you've been distant lately, working late all the time. Something flashed in Dominic's eyes. Pain, perhaps, or guilt. My work schedule has nothing to do with us being here right now, he said firmly. And if Valeria is feeling neglected, that's something she should discuss with me directly, not through you. Maybe she's afraid to confront you, Valeria pressed. Maybe she's afraid of what she might discover. Dominic's expression softened unexpectedly. If she's afraid, then I've failed her already. The last thing I want is for Valeria to doubt how much I love her. The sincerity in his voice shook Valeria to her core. Was it possible she'd misinterpreted everything? Had the anonymous text and her own insecurities created a problem where none existed? Then why agree to meet me tonight? She asked, voicing the question that had been plaguing her since receiving Vanessa's text. Dominic sighed, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Valeria's heart ache. Because I needed to address this directly. Valeria and I are getting married. You're her sister, her twin. We're going to be family. Whatever. Feelings you think you have for me need to be resolved now. Before they cause damage none of us can repair. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, forming a picture vastly different from what Valeria had imagined. Dominic hadn't come tonight with the intention of betraying her. He'd come to protect their relationship. But before she could process this revelation, Dominic continued, his voice dropping to a near whisper. There's something else you should know. Something I haven't even told Valeria yet. Valeria's pulse quickened. What is it? The reason I've been working so late. The reason I've been distant. He reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. Not a ring box, but something larger. I've been working extra cases to afford this. He opened the box to reveal a delicate necklace. A teardrop diamond suspended from a platinum chain. It's an anniversary gift. 6 months since we met. I wanted it to be perfect. Tears welled in Valeria's eyes as the last of her suspicions crumbled. She had been wrong. Catastrophically, humiliatingly wrong. The man sitting across from her wasn't Eric. He wasn't a cheater or a liar. He was exactly who he'd always claimed to be. A man who loved her enough to work himself to exhaustion for her happiness. And she had repaid that love with suspicion and deception. The restaurant's ambient noise faded to a distant hum as Valeria stared at the necklace. Its diamond caught the candlelight, sending fractured rainbows across the white tablecloth. She had never felt more ashamed in her entire life. The elaborate ruse, the suspicion, the doubt, all of it now revealed as a manifestation of her own unhealed wounds. Not any failing on Dominic's part. It's beautiful, she managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. Dominic closed the box and returned it to his pocket. I was planning to give it to her tomorrow night. I've arranged a special dinner at home. A shadow crossed his face. I just hope my recent behavior hasn't damaged things between us too much. The irony was almost unbearable. Here was Dominic, worried that his thoughtful surprise had created distance, while Valeria had been orchestrating an elaborate trap based on unfounded suspicions. She loves you, Valeria said, the truth of those words resonating within her despite the charade she was maintaining. More than you know. I love her too, Dominic replied with such conviction that Valeria had to look away, which is why this, whatever this is, needs to stop, tonight. Valeria nodded, unsure how to proceed. She could continue the deception, playing the role of Vanessa rebuffed, or she could reveal herself and face the consequences of her distrust. Neither option seemed likely to preserve the happiness she had so recklessly endangered. There's something else I need to tell you, Dominic continued, his expression growing serious. The night you came to my office wasn't the first time I suspected you might have feelings for me. Valeria's heart sank. What had Dominic noticed that she hadn't? Had Vanessa actually harbored feelings for her fiancé? What do you mean? She asked cautiously. Dominic hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. About a month ago, I received some text messages. Anonymous, warning me that someone close to Valeria was trying to sabotage our relationship. He met her gaze directly. At first, I thought it might be her ex, that Eric guy who hurt her so badly. But after your visit to my office, I started to wonder if it might be you. The revelation hit Valeria like a physical blow. Someone had been sending anonymous messages to Dominic as well? The same person who had texted her, perhaps? But who would want to drive them apart? Did you tell Valeria about these messages? She asked, desperate to understand. No, Dominic admitted, looking guilty. She's been through so much already with her last relationship. I didn't want to burden her with what might just be someone's sick idea of a joke. I figured I could handle it myself. The parallel was striking, both of them receiving anonymous warnings, both choosing to protect the other by handling it alone, both ultimately making choices that risked their relationship rather than simply talking openly. Maybe you should tell her, Valeria suggested softly. She's stronger than you think. A sad smile touched Dominic's lips. I know exactly how strong she is. It's one of the countless things I love about her. His expression hardened again, which is why I won't let anyone, not even her twin sister, come between us. Valeria felt tears threatening again and blinked rapidly to hold them back. The depth of Dominic's loyalty, even when he believed he was facing a threat from within her own family, was humbling. I should go, she said suddenly, unable to maintain the deception any longer. Each moment she continued this charade felt like another betrayal of the man who so clearly deserved her trust. Not yet, Dominic countered, his tone firm. Not until I have your word that this ends tonight. No more surprise visits to my office. No more suggestive texts. No more trying to create doubt between me and Valeria. Confusion flickered across Valeria's features. Suggestive texts? She stopped abruptly, realization dawning. If Dominic thought Vanessa had been sending him messages, and Vanessa hadn't, when did these texts start? She asked urgently. Dominic looked surprised by the sudden intensity of her question. About a month ago, like I said. Why? And what exactly did they say? Different things. That Valeria deserved better. That someone close to her knew things about me that would break her heart. That I should end things before she got hurt. His jaw tightened. Honestly, I thought it was just someone trying to get under my skin until you showed up at my office acting. Well, the way you did. Valeria's mind raced. The timeline matched precisely with when she'd received her own anonymous message warning her about Dominic. And now it seemed Dominic had received similar messages, apparently designed to make him suspect Vanessa. Someone was deliberately trying to drive them apart. Before she could process this revelation further, Dominic's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, frowned, and silenced it without answering. That's the third time she's called in the last hour, he muttered, almost to himself. Valeria? She asked, though she knew it couldn't be. Her own phone was set to silent in her purse. No, Victoria, Dominic replied, an edge of irritation in his voice. My assistant. She's been acting strange lately, calling at all hours, finding excuses to be in my office. He shook his head dismissively. I think she's worried about her job. The firm's been making cuts. Victoria Morrison. The pieces clicked into place with sudden, devastating clarity. Dominic's beautiful, ambitious assistant who, according to office gossip, Valeria had dismissed as petty jealousy, had set her sights on her boss long before he met Valeria. How long has she been your assistant? Valeria asked, trying to keep her voice casual. Almost 2 years. Why? And she has your personal number? Access to your schedule? Knows about your relationship with Valeria? Dominic's brow furrowed. Yes, to all of that. But I don't see the anonymous texts, Valeria interrupted, unable to contain the revelation any longer. I think they're from Victoria. Dominic stared at her, confusion evident. Victoria? Why would she? Because she wants you for herself, Valeria explained urgently. And she's trying to break you and Valeria up by making each of you suspicious of the other. Or in this case, suspicious of me. Understanding dawned slowly on Dominic's face, followed quickly by disbelief. That's a serious accusation, Vanessa. Victoria's been a loyal employee. She's professional, efficient, and in love with you, Valeria finished. Think about it. The late-night calls, the excuses to be near you, and now these anonymous messages driving a wedge between you and Valeria just weeks before your wedding. Dominic's phone lit up again with Victoria's call, as if summoned by their conversation. This time, he stared at it with new awareness. Even if you're right, he said slowly, why would she target you? Make me think you were interested in me? Valeria swallowed hard. The moment of truth had arrived sooner than she'd anticipated. She didn't. She doesn't know me well enough to realize that I would never betray my sister that way. She took a deep breath, meeting Dominic's gaze directly. I'm not Vanessa. For several seconds, Dominic simply stared at her, uncomprehending. Then his eyes widened with dawning recognition and shock. Valeria, he whispered, disbelief evident in every syllable. She nodded, tears finally spilling onto her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Dominic. I received an anonymous text, too, warning me that you weren't who I thought you were. And then you started working late, becoming distant. I let my past with Eric cloud my judgment. I convinced Vanessa to help me test you, to see if you'd be faithful when tempted. Dominic's expression transformed from shock to hurt, the betrayal evident in his eyes. You set me up? Tested me like I was some suspect in one of my cases? His voice hardened with each word. You didn't trust me enough to just ask me directly about your concerns? I was scared, Valeria admitted, her voice breaking. Scared of being hurt again, of looking like a fool again if I was wrong. Scared of losing you. So instead, you created an elaborate scheme to trick me? Dominic stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? To know the woman I love, the woman I want to spend my life with, has so little faith in me? Several nearby diners glanced their way, drawn by the commotion. Valeria barely noticed them, her entire focus on the pain etched across Dominic's face. I made a terrible mistake, she said, standing as well. I let fear guide me instead of love, and I'm more sorry than I can express. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you thought I was capable of betraying you with your own sister. No less. Dominic's voice was low now, controlled, but vibrating with hurt. What kind of foundation is that for a marriage? The question hung between them, unanswerable in its devastating accuracy. What kind of foundation, indeed? One built on love but undermined by suspicion? On commitment, shadowed by doubt. I should go, Dominic said finally, reaching for his wallet and tossing several bills onto the table. I need time to think. Dominic, please. Valeria reached for his arm, desperate to fix what she had broken. We need to talk about this. About Victoria. About the texts. Not now. He cut her off, pulling away from her touch. Right now, I can barely look at you without seeing the elaborate trap you set, without wondering if this entire relationship has been you waiting for me to fail some test. The words struck with precision, exposing the core of her deepest insecurities. Had she been unconsciously testing Dominic all along? Waiting for him to prove he was like Eric after all? Before she could formulate a response, Dominic strode toward the exit, leaving Valeria standing alone at the table, aware of curious stares from nearby diners, but too devastated to care. Outside, the cool evening air did nothing to clear her thoughts. She stood on the sidewalk, watching Dominic's retreating figure until it disappeared around a corner. Only then did she allow herself to fully break down, tears flowing freely as the magnitude of her mistake crashed over her. Her phone buzzed in her purse. Wiping her eyes, she retrieved it, hoping against hope to see Dominic's name. Instead, it was Vanessa. How did it go? The text read. Valeria could barely see the screen through her tears. How could she possibly explain that her attempt to protect herself from heartbreak had instead caused exactly what she feared most? I was wrong, she typed back, about everything. He loves me, and I ruined it. She had just pressed send when another text arrived, this one from an unknown number, the same that had sent the original warning. I told you he wasn't who you thought he was. Now you know the truth. Anger flared through Valeria's grief. If her suspicions about Victoria were correct, then this woman had deliberately manipulated her fears, exploiting her past trauma to sabotage her happiness, and Valeria had played right into her hands. I do know the truth, she typed back fiercely, and so will Dominic. Clutching her phone like a lifeline, Valeria hailed a taxi. She might have destroyed her relationship through her own insecurities, but she would not let Victoria Morrison escape accountability for her role in this disaster. Tomorrow, she would confront the woman who had fanned the flames of her doubt. Tonight, she needed to find a way to begin repairing the damage she had done to the man she loved, if he would even give her the chance. Sleep eluded Valeria that night. She paced the apartment she shared with Dominic, every corner filled with memories now shadowed by uncertainty. His toothbrush beside hers in the bathroom, his law books stacked neatly on the bedside table, the framed photo of them laughing at the coast last summer, taken just days after they'd met. Each item a testament to the life they'd been building, a life she had jeopardized with her inability to trust. Dominic hadn't come home. His only communication had been a terse text message around midnight. Staying at Mark's tonight. Need space to think. Mark, his best friend and law partner, had never particularly warmed to Valeria. She could only imagine what Dominic was telling him now, what judgment Mark was passing on her actions. By dawn, Valeria had formed a plan, desperate perhaps, but born of the clarity that comes from a night spent confronting one's worst mistakes. First, she would confront Victoria Morrison directly. If the woman was indeed behind the anonymous messages, Valeria needed proof before approaching Dominic. Then, she would fight with everything she had to save her relationship, to prove to Dominic that her love was stronger than her fear. Sunday morning stretched before her, hours until Monday when Victoria would be at the law firm. Valeria couldn't wait that long. The thought of Dominic spending another day believing she fundamentally mistrusted him was unbearable. She called Vanessa, who answered immediately despite the early hour. "Val, are you okay? Your texts last night were so cryptic." "I need your help," Valeria said, her voice rough from crying. "One more time." After explaining everything, Dominic's true purpose for the meeting, her revelation of her identity, and their devastating confrontation, Valeria outlined her suspicion about Victoria Morrison. "So you think his assistant orchestrated this whole thing?" Vanessa asked, skepticism evident in her tone. "That's elaborate." "I know how it sounds," Valeria admitted, "but the timing of the messages, the way they were clearly designed to make me suspicious of Dominic and him suspicious of you, it fits. Victoria has access to his schedule, his phone, knows about our relationship, and according to office gossip, she's had feelings for him for months. Even if you're right, what can we do about it now? The damage is done." The blunt assessment stung, but Valeria couldn't deny its accuracy. "The damage is done," she agreed, "but I can still show Dominic that I've learned from this mistake, that I trust him enough to bring my suspicions directly to him instead of testing him. And I can prove that someone was deliberately trying to sabotage us. And how exactly do you plan to do that? I need to search Victoria's desk, her computer if possible. Find evidence she sent those messages." "Val, that's breaking and entering. You could be arrested." "Not if I have legitimate access to the building," Valeria countered, "which is where you come in. I need you to call Victoria. Pretend to be me. Tell her I need to pick up some documents from Dominic's office for the wedding. Insurance papers or something. Ask her to meet you there." Silence stretched over the line as Vanessa contemplated the request. "And while she's waiting for me to show up, you'll be searching her things? That's still illegal, Val." "I know," Valeria whispered, "but I'm desperate. I love him, Vanessa. More than I've ever loved anyone, and I can't lose him because I was too afraid to trust that love." Another long pause followed before Vanessa sighed heavily. "I must be crazy," she muttered. "Fine, I'll call her. But Val, if you get caught—" "I won't," Valeria promised, though she had no way of knowing if that was true. "Thank you, Vanessa. I know I've been asking too much of you lately." "You're my sister," Vanessa replied simply. "My twin. Your pain is my pain. Just be careful, okay?" Within the hour, their plan was in motion. Vanessa, impersonating Valeria on the phone, had reached Victoria directly. The assistant had initially seemed reluctant to meet on a Sunday, but eventually agreed to unlock the office at 11 o'clock. Valeria would have 30 minutes to find what she needed before Victoria realized she'd been stood up and potentially became suspicious. The law firm of Stevens and Markowitz occupied the 12th floor of a downtown high-rise. On weekends, the building's main entrance was locked, accessible only with a key card. Valeria had one. A spare Dominic had given her months ago in case of emergencies. He'd never specified that his distrustful fiancée using it to break into his assistant's desk constituted an emergency, but circumstances were desperate. Valeria arrived at 10:45, giving herself time to compose her thoughts and plan her approach. She dressed carefully, professional attire that wouldn't seem out of place if she encountered anyone else in the building. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she swiped the keycard and entered the lobby. The elevator ride to the 12th floor felt interminable. With each ascending floor, doubts multiplied in Valeria's mind. What if she was wrong about Victoria? What if she found nothing and only compounded her betrayal of Dominic's trust with this invasion of his workplace? What if she was caught? But beneath these fears lay a deeper certainty. If she didn't try everything possible to salvage her relationship with Dominic, she would regret it for the rest of her life. The elevator doors opened onto the firm's reception area, dark and silent on a Sunday morning. Valeria moved quickly through the familiar space, past Dominic's corner office with its view of the city, toward the smaller workspace occupied by Victoria Morrison. Unlike the partners' offices with their solid doors and privacy, the assistants' desks were in an open area, separated only by low partitions. Victoria's workspace was meticulously organized, not a paper out of place, her computer monitor precisely centered on the desk, even her pens arranged by color in a decorative holder. Valeria glanced at her watch. 10:55. Victoria would be arriving soon to unlock the building, unaware that Valeria was already inside. She needed to work quickly. The desk drawers were locked, but the key was hidden precisely where most office workers kept it, taped to the underside of the desk drawer. Amateur, Valeria thought as she retrieved it and unlocked the top drawer. Inside was standard office fare, staples, paper clips, sticky notes. The second drawer contained files, all labeled with case names Valeria recognized from Dominic's discussions of his work. Nothing suspicious or personal. The bottom drawer, however, yielded something unexpected. A small photo frame, turned face down beneath a stack of legal pads. Valeria lifted it carefully and felt her breath catch. It was a picture of Dominic, clearly taken without his knowledge, as he worked at his desk. The photo had been cropped and placed in an ornate silver frame, the kind one might use for a loved one, not a boss. More disturbing still was the small notebook tucked beneath where the photo had been. Flipping it open, Valeria found page after page of detailed notes about Dominic's schedule, not just his professional appointments, which would be normal for an assistant to track, but personal details as well. When he went to the gym, where he and Valeria had dinner, notes about their wedding plans. It was a chronicle of obsession, meticulously documented. Valeria's hands trembled as she photographed several pages with her phone. This wasn't definitive proof that Victoria had sent the anonymous messages, but it certainly established an unhealthy fixation on Dominic. The sound of the elevator arriving sent a jolt of panic through Valeria. Victoria was early. Quickly, she replaced the notebook and photo, locked the drawer, and returned the key to its hiding place. She had seconds, at most, before Victoria would round the corner and discover her. With no time to hide, Valeria made a split-second decision. She walked quickly toward the elevator, as if she were just leaving. As expected, she nearly collided with Victoria in the hallway. "Mrs. Stanton," Victoria said, surprise evident in her voice. The formal address, not Valeria or even Ms. Stanton, felt deliberately distancing. "I thought we were meeting at 11. Victoria Morrison was strikingly beautiful, with sleek dark hair and impeccable makeup even on a Sunday morning. Her expression, however, held something Valeria hadn't noticed in their previous brief encounters, a coldness that didn't reach her practiced smile. "I arrived early," Valeria improvised. "Dominic gave me his key card ages ago. I hope that's okay." "Of course," Victoria replied smoothly. "Did you find what you needed?" The question carried a subtle edge, as if Victoria was probing to discover what Valeria had really been doing. "Actually, no," Valeria admitted, deciding honesty might be the safest approach. "I was looking for our insurance documents. Dominic said he had a copy here, but I couldn't find them in his office." Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched slightly. "Insurance documents? On a Sunday? That seems urgent." "Wedding planning," Valeria explained with a forced laugh. "Everything feels urgent these days." "Of course," Victoria nodded, though her eyes remained calculating. "The big day is approaching quickly, isn't it? Just a few more weeks." 6, to be exact, Valeria confirmed, watching Victoria's reaction closely. Something flickered across the other woman's features, a momentary crack in her composure. Displeasure? Anger? It was gone too quickly for Valeria to be certain. "How exciting for you both," Victoria said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Dominic certainly seems committed to making it perfect." The slight pause before committed sent a chill down Valeria's spine. There was history here. She was certain of it now. Victoria's carefully chosen words carried undercurrents of resentment. "He's wonderful that way," Valeria replied, unable to resist staking her claim. "So thoughtful, so loyal." Victoria's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Indeed. Well, since you couldn't find what you were looking for, perhaps I can help? I know where most things are filed." It was a challenge, subtle but unmistakable. Victoria was asserting her knowledge of Dominic's professional life, her rightful place in his workspace. "That's kind of you," Valeria said, matching Victoria's tone of artificial pleasantness. "But I just remembered Dominic actually took those documents home on Friday." "Silly me, coming all this way for nothing." "How frustrating for you," Victoria replied, her gaze steady and assessing. "Should I tell Dominic you were looking for him when he comes in tomorrow?" The question was a trap, and they both knew it. If Victoria mentioned this encounter to Dominic, he would know Valeria had lied about the documents. But admitting she didn't want Dominic to know she'd been here would only raise Victoria's suspicions further. "Please do," Valeria said, deciding directness was her best defense. "In fact, I've been meaning to speak with you directly, Victoria, about some strange text messages Dominic and I have been receiving." The calculated risk paid off. Victoria's composure slipped, real surprise registering in her expression before she could mask it. "Text messages? I'm afraid I don't know what you mean." "Anonymous messages," Valeria clarified, holding Victoria's gaze, "trying to create problems between us, suggesting he's unfaithful, suggesting my sister has feelings for him. Strange, isn't it? Almost as if someone wanted to sabotage our relationship." Victoria's recovery was impressive, her features smoothing into professional concern. "How disturbing. Have you reported this harassment?" "Not yet," Valeria replied, "but I intend to. In fact, I've already begun gathering evidence. Phone records, building access logs. It's remarkable what digital footprints people leave behind these days." It was a bluff, but one that struck its target. Victoria's face paled slightly despite her makeup. "Well, I hope you find whoever is responsible," she said, her voice steady despite the visible tension in her shoulders. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I should get the documents I came for. Some of us have to work weekends to keep this firm running smoothly. The dismissal was clear, but Valeria had seen enough. Victoria Morrison was rattled, and guilty people made mistakes when rattled. All Valeria needed to do was wait and watch. "Of course," she said pleasantly. "I won't keep you from your work. Have a lovely Sunday, Victoria." As Valeria stepped into the elevator, she caught a glimpse of Victoria already reaching for her phone, fingers moving rapidly across the screen. A warning to someone? Or deletion of incriminating evidence? Either way, Valeria had accomplished what she came for: confirmation that Victoria Morrison had something to hide. Now, she needed to find a way to prove it definitively, and more importantly, to make Dominic listen long enough to consider the possibility that their relationship had been sabotaged not by Valeria's insecurity alone, but by someone with a vested interest in their failure. Monday morning arrived with a clarity Valeria hadn't felt in days. After her confrontation with Victoria, she'd spent hours documenting everything: the timeline of anonymous messages, her observations of Victoria's strange behavior, and most importantly, the photos she'd taken of the disturbing notebook. It wasn't conclusive proof, but it painted a compelling picture of obsession that couldn't be easily dismissed. Dominic still hadn't returned home. His texts remained brief and distant. "Need more time," and "Will call when I'm ready to talk." Each message was a knife to Valeria's heart, but she respected his need for space. What she'd done, the elaborate deception, the fundamental distrust, couldn't be erased with a simple apology. Trust, once fractured, required more than words to repair. At 8:30, Valeria made a decision. She wouldn't wait for Dominic to be ready to hear her out. Some truths couldn't wait, and if there was any chance Victoria was continuing to manipulate the situation, every moment of delay was dangerous. She would go to his office directly, present what she'd discovered, and accept whatever judgment he passed. At least then, he would have all the facts. She dressed with care, the emerald green dress Dominic had given her for her birthday, her hair styled simply the way he preferred. Not as manipulation, but as a silent acknowledgement of how well he knew her, how much he'd invested in their relationship before she'd let fear overwhelm her judgment. The Stevens and Markowitz building looked different in the morning light, bustling with Monday activity. Valeria's key card granted her access again, but this time she felt none of yesterday's furtive anxiety. She had nothing to hide anymore, only truth to reveal, however painful the consequences might be. The elevator was crowded with suited professionals clutching coffee cups and scrolling through phones. None paid particular attention to Valeria, though she felt exposed, as if her purpose was somehow visible on her face. When the doors opened on the 12th floor, she stepped out with forced confidence, heading directly toward Dominic's corner office. She was halfway there when she heard it. Dominic's voice, raised in anger, coming from one of the conference rooms. Valeria froze, heart hammering. In nearly a year together, she'd rarely heard him truly angry. Stern in court, certainly. Frustrated with difficult clients occasionally, but genuine anger? That was reserved for true injustice. "I want a straight answer, Victoria." His voice carried clearly through the partially open door. "Did you send those messages? Or not?" Valeria moved closer, scarcely daring to breathe. Through the narrow opening, she could see Dominic standing rigidly by the conference table, facing Victoria, whose back was to the door. "I don't know what you're talking about," Victoria replied, her voice carrying that same artificial sweetness Valeria had noted yesterday. "What messages?" "Don't play games with me," Dominic snapped. "Anonymous texts. To me, warning about Vanessa. To Valeria, warning about me. Designed to make us suspicious of each other. Ring any bells?" Victoria's posture stiffened. "I would never do something so juvenile. I'm a professional, Dominic. Your accusation is insulting." "Is it?" Dominic's voice lowered dangerously. "Because Mark checked the phone records this morning. Guess whose burner phone number matches the one that sent those texts?" Valeria's breath caught. Mark, Dominic's partner, had access to phone records through their legal work. Of course, Dominic would have asked him to investigate once suspicion fell on Victoria. "That's impossible," Victoria stammered, her composure clearly shaken. "Those records are private." "So you admit there are records to find?" Dominic pounced on the slip immediately, like the skilled attorney he was. "Records of you purchasing a burner phone? Records of messages sent to me and my fiancé? You're twisting my words." Victoria's voice rose shrilly. "This is workplace harassment." "No, Victoria," Dominic replied, his tone ice-cold. "Harassment is sending anonymous messages designed to destroy my engagement. Harassment is keeping obsessive records of my personal schedule. Harassment is taking photographs of me without consent and hiding them in your desk." Valeria's heart skipped. He knew about the notebook, the photograph. "How?" "You went through my desk?" Victoria gasped. "That's private property." "Actually, it's firm property," Dominic corrected her. "And after Valeria told me what she found yesterday, Mark authorized a formal search of your workspace as part of an internal investigation. We found everything, Victoria. The burner phone, the detailed records of my personal life, even drafts of those anonymous messages." "Yesterday?" Valeria frowned in confusion. She hadn't spoken to Dominic yesterday. She'd specifically avoided contacting him, respecting his request for space. Unless... The realization hit her with stunning clarity. Vanessa. Her twin must have reached out to Dominic after their conversation, shared what Valeria had discovered. The thought of her sister advocating for her, trying to protect her relationship when Valeria herself had nearly destroyed it, brought tears to her eyes. Inside the conference room, the confrontation continued. "You don't understand," Victoria said, her voice suddenly soft, pleading. "I did it because I care about you. She's not right for you, Dominic. She doesn't trust you. She proved that herself. I would never doubt you the way she did." "You manipulated that situation," Dominic replied, disgust evident in his voice. "You deliberately played on Valeria's past trauma to make her doubt me. What kind of person does that?" "Someone who loves you," Victoria cried. "I've loved you for 2 years, watching you date woman after woman, waiting for you to notice me. Then she comes along and after 6 months, 6 months, you're engaged? It's not right. It's not fair." "Fair?" Dominic's voice rose again. "You think love is about fairness? About who put in the most time? Love isn't a reward for patience, Victoria. It's not something you earn through seniority. You would have loved me if you'd given me a chance," Victoria insisted. "We're perfect together. We understand each other. We're both dedicated to the law, to building something meaningful. What does she give you that I can't?" The question hung in the air for a moment. Valeria held her breath, unexpectedly anxious about Dominic's answer, despite knowing how he felt about her. "Despite everything. She gives me a home," Dominic said finally, his voice softer now, almost gentle despite the circumstance. "Not a physical place, but the feeling of belonging completely, of being accepted for exactly who I am, flaws and all. That's not something you can compete for or earn, Victoria. It either exists between two people or it doesn't." Tears slid silently down Valeria's cheeks at his words. Even now, after her betrayal of his trust, Dominic understood what they had built together, what was worth fighting to preserve. "She didn't accept you," Victoria countered bitterly. "She tested you, deceived you. How can you forgive that?" "That's between Valeria and me," Dominic replied firmly. "A relationship isn't perfect just because it never faces challenges. It's strong because of how we choose to overcome those challenges together." "So, you're choosing her," Victoria said flatly. "Despite everything." "I'm choosing to fight for what matters," Dominic corrected. "And right now, what matters is addressing the harm you've caused. The firm will be pressing charges for corporate espionage. Your unauthorized access of confidential files is a serious offense. You'll be escorted to clear your desk, and then you're to leave the premises immediately." Victoria's laugh was harsh, almost hysterical. "You're going to regret this, Dominic. When she betrays you again, and she will, you'll remember I was the one who truly understood you, who would have done anything for you." "That's the difference, Victoria," Dominic said quietly. "Love isn't about doing anything for someone. It's about doing what's right for them, even when it's difficult, even when it means letting go." Unable to remain hidden any longer, Valeria pushed the door open fully and stepped into the conference room. Both Dominic and Victoria turned toward her, shock registering on their faces. "Valeria," Dominic breathed, his expression a complex mixture of surprise, relief, and lingering hurt. Victoria's face contorted with anger. "Of course. Perfect timing. Did you two plan this little ambush together?" "No," Valeria replied steadily, meeting the other woman's gaze without flinching. "Dominic had no idea I was coming here today." "Then why are you here?" Victoria demanded. "To gloat? Play the victim?" "I'm here to apologize," Valeria said, shifting her focus to Dominic. "To you, Dominic, for doubting you, for letting fear guide my actions instead of love and trust." He turned back to Victoria. "And to you, Victoria, because clearly I'm not the only one who's been hurt by love." Victoria stared at her in disbelief. "You're apologizing to me? After what I did?" "What you did was wrong," Valeria acknowledged, cruel and calculating. "But I understand desperation. I understand what it feels like to be so afraid of losing someone that you make terrible choices." She took a deep breath. "The difference is that I'm trying to learn from my mistakes, to be better, to trust more deeply." Victoria's expression hardened. "Save your pity. I don't need forgiveness from either of you." She snatched her purse from the conference table. "I'll clear my desk. You'll have my resignation within the hour." She pushed past Valeria and stormed out, leaving a weighted silence in her wake. Alone at last, Valeria and Dominic regarded each other across the conference room, months of love and days of pain suspended in the space between them. "Vanessa called you," Valeria said finally, "about what I found in Victoria's desk." Dominic nodded. "Yesterday afternoon. She was worried about you. Said you were blaming yourself for everything, when it was clear someone had deliberately manipulated the situation." "I still made the choice to doubt you," Valeria replied, unable to absolve herself so easily. "To test you instead of talking to you directly. That's on me, not Victoria." "Yes," Dominic agreed, surprising her with his directness. "That choice was yours, and it hurt me deeply to know you didn't trust me enough to bring your concerns to me directly." Valeria nodded, accepting the painful truth. "I understand if that's changed how you feel about us. About me." "It has," Dominic said, moving slowly toward her, "but not in the way you might think." He stopped directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the fatigue in his eyes, the tension still lingering in his jaw. "I spent 36 hours thinking about us," he continued, "about trust and forgiveness, about what it means to truly commit to someone for life." "And what did you conclude?" Valeria asked, scarcely daring to hope. "That love without forgiveness isn't love at all," Dominic said simply. "That we all carry wounds from our past, and sometimes those wounds make us act from fear instead of courage." He reached for her hand, his touch tentative yet familiar. "And that despite everything, I cannot imagine my life without you in it." Tears spilled freely down Valeria's cheeks now. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "Forgiveness isn't about deserving," Dominic replied gently. "It's about choosing to move forward together instead of being trapped by past mistakes." He squeezed her hand. "I choose us, Valeria, if you still want that too." "More than anything," she whispered. He pulled her into his arms then, holding her tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. Valeria clung to him with equal desperation, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. "I promise," she murmured against his chest, "I will never doubt you like that again." I'll always come to you directly with any fears or concerns. No more tests. No more secrets. Dominic pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. And I promise to be more transparent, to make sure you never have reason to doubt my commitment to you, to create a relationship where trust comes as naturally as breathing. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the velvet box she'd seen at Angelo's, the one containing the diamond necklace he'd worked extra hours to afford. This was supposed to be a surprise for our 6-month anniversary. I think now it can be a symbol of something more, of renewal, of choosing each other despite the challenges we've faced. Valeria stood still as Dominic fastened the delicate chain around her neck, the teardrop diamond settling against her skin like a promise made tangible. "It's beautiful," she whispered, touching it gently. "Not as beautiful as you," Dominic replied, his eyes filled with a love that humbled her. "Not as beautiful as what we're building together." 6 weeks later, on a perfect autumn day, Valeria stood before a small gathering of loved ones, her sister Vanessa at her side as maid of honor. Across from her, Dominic waited with a smile that still made her heart race after all they'd been through. As they exchanged vows, promises to love, honor, and trust each other through whatever challenges life presented, Valeria's hand rose unconsciously to touch the diamond at her throat. Not just an anniversary gift now, but a reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything, and how much stronger they'd grown through the trial by fire. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant declared to applause from their assembled friends and family. As Dominic pulled her into their first kiss as a married couple, Valeria knew with absolute certainty that some tests weren't meant to be passed or failed, but to be transformed into foundations for something unbreakable. Their love had been tested, certainly, by external manipulation and internal fear. But in surviving that test, they'd built something far more precious than the perfect fairy tale. A real partnership, eyes wide open, choosing each other fully and without reservation. And in that choice, Valeria had found not just love, but the courage to trust it completely. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And drop a comment below. What city are you watching from? And if your heart tells you to, feel free to leave me a tip on Buy Me a Coffee. Just check the first pinned comment. Thanks for keeping me company and for the coffee, and I'll see you in the next story.